when you open the door for somebody else.
Welcome back to the Vaccine Conversation with Melissa and Dr. Bob.
How do you do that? How do you throw your voice like that?
I could just do it.
That is unreal.
It is pretty cool.
It's almost like two people were talking.
Almost.
Crazy.
It was like that. I am just multi-talented. Right. Well, should we banter for a whole bunch of another half an hour before we get into our topic?
We don't like each other, so we don't banter. Okay. We don't even, you guys don't understand how forced this is to have this conversation for all these people. I mean, I'm just gritting my teeth. How can I get through this? So why would I want to actually have extra conversation with you, Dr. Bob? Just kidding, everybody. Again, Happy New Year. We welcomed you back with our last episode. Mm-hmm. We're so happy to be back, and we're happy you guys are on this journey with us. And we are bringing you a very unsettling topic
Very
today.
disturbed. I was literally very disturbed by reading this article. Wow. It gets the prize for this year's article.
Your copy didn't have pictures with it, or it did?
It didn't print the pictures.
But there were pictures with it.
There were pictures, yeah.
Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about an article by WikiHow. How to do anything, right? That's what it says. This is January 8th, 2020. How to get vaccinated without parental consent. And there are some images, some cartoon kind of images, one of which looks like the teenage boy is telling a secret. It's really disturbing, right? And we're going to go through each of these different points that this article has are different methods, and they have all the details about doing this. So we are going to discuss this with you because
I have the article if you wanted to see it. If you wanted
so the pictures are all very children looking sneaky and finding ways to do things behind their parents' back is essentially what the topic is. And again, the title is How to Get Vaccinated Without Parental Consent. It doesn't show the author because it's just through WikiHow, right?
Right. But I actually clicked on that on their website, and it talks about the authors. Basically, the way WikiHow works is it's just like Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. It's a bunch of people contribute to an article. They're rarely written by one person. And if you click on the author info, it basically, they talk about how they got 13 people together to create this article. 13, some of them experts, some of them lay people, and they wanted to be anonymous, and so
anonymous. Did you just say anonymous?
Anonymous.
Anonymous.
So it's not like this was just written by one expert and they know a lot about this topic. This was, you'll see how disturbing this is, but this was a media savvy, psychologically savvy,
manipulative,
very manipulative article targeted directly at teenagers in order to get them to sneak out and get vaccinated.
Exactly.
Right. And you think, WikiHow, it's WikiHow, how to do anything. I'm going to go there. I'm going to learn how to, build a shed in my backyard, or I'm going to learn how to do this. This is so far beyond learning just simply how to do something. They take it to the darkest level, and it's incredibly disturbing to me that our society now has an online system that probably a lot of people probably respect and probably think is
right. But they would allow this, right?
Great thing.
What if this article was how to avoid vaccination when your parents want you to, and it was all the step-by-step to do that? Do you think that article would have stayed up?
No,
it would have never stayed up.
No.
And yet this is still, why is it disturbing? Because it's literally teaching children. We're talking about children who are minors, right? So that could be 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, and their younger siblings if they're listening to this and a part of this process. It's teaching them how to go against their parents, who are their guardians, who are responsible for their health and well-being and have been since they were born, to go against them to make other medical decisions with the mentality and maturity of a preteen or a teenager, which means your brain is not even completely developed. Parts of your different cortexes in your brain are not even wired for long-term consequence thinking. And that doesn't even happen until you're 20 or 21 years old. So we're talking about a 12 and a 13-year-old. What they're telling you to do when you're incapable of making a decision about medical interventions is they're saying, go ahead and do this decision on your own. You don't need the person who's been responsible for all your health and well-being to be involved in this decision. And let's go through exactly what they say. Even in the intro, it's, they start off by saying there's a lot of misinformation about vaccines online, and sometimes well-meaning parents fall into rabbit holes of conspiracy theories and made up, in quotes, facts. It says, while they often intend to protect their children, not vaccinating has the opposite effect. And again, like anything else, there is no one size fits all in this. And so for some children, vaccinating them will absolutely cause the harm. And it would be more harm than it would be to avoid the particular illness. And so there is no way to say not vaccinating makes you more at risk, because for certain children, you're more at risk in order, vaccinating. Right. And this is what the whole argument that we've been having is, all pharmaceutical products have side effects for some. All vaccines have side effects and risks for some. And do you think a 12 or 13-year-old is going to really understand their own medical history to be able to say, well, I had a seizure as a child 3 different times after these vaccines, and therefore, if I get this series that has the same components or whatever, they're not going to have the ability to do that. And their school nurse is also not going to be the one that's delving into this complicated history and asking for medical records from their pediatrician. Right. It's not going to happen. And this idea, this whole climate of secrecy is not something that should ever be attached to a medical intervention or a medical procedure.
Absolutely. And that's why we're telling you guys about this, because this shocked me. They are literally now going after your children. You listeners with children, I'm sure you've been talking to your teens about this and talking to your kids about this, but they are now actively targeting your children in schools and in healthcare centers and in the school nurse's office, at the pharmacy, at the drugstore. They're targeting your children now, and they're now trying to convince your children that you are wrong to not vaccinate. And they're trying to reach your children directly online with this article and teach your child how to sneak out of the house and how to go get vaccinated without you realizing
it. And who to talk to and who not to talk to.
Right. And so you need to now be aware of this, because you need to maybe read this article with your child and go through it with them.
That's a great idea. At any age, no matter how solid you think your child is or your teen or preteen is on this topic, because you've already educated them already, hopefully they're very aware of the reasons that you're opting out of certain things and their own medical history. You should walk them through this article, not just because of what this article is saying, but because of this idea of manipulative
and how
marketing.
They're saying it.
And how they can sneak messages to you, and they need to be aware the way that we're making you guys aware of how this stuff is hidden in media articles, and you've now become really educated on that. This is another way. And even in the intro, they're like, please be aware there are risks to any medical procedure, and receiving, I think it's supposed to say vaccines, but it says vaccines without your parents' or guardians' knowledge will make it more difficult for them to help you in the unlikely event of a problem. So let's say your child reacts adversely to a vaccine. They're saying the fact that there is this medical procedure with risks and you're doing it without your parents' knowledge, they're not going to really be able to help you, because God forbid, they don't even know this happened, and they don't know why you're having these random symptoms of something afterwards, and they don't treat it fast enough, and they don't take you in to be seen. I've heard of this exact same thing happening with the HPV vaccine.
But don't worry, they give your teen instructions on how to handle that if you do have a bad reaction, and what precautions to take so they can seek help if you have a bad reaction. They cover it, Melissa, so it's okay. You don't have to worry about it.
Well, you want to start with method 1?
Yeah. So they basically say, method 1 is making plans. Look at your options. Some areas let you get vaccinated without parental consent if you're a minor, and others don't.
But let you sounds like something you get to do. Right. Like it even sounds like something positive. They're choosing these words by design, you guys.
They totally are.
Not an accident.
Right. Totally choosing these words with the intent of trying to
make it attractive.
Yeah, make your teenager think that you have made a bad decision. Your decision to not vaccinate them is wrong. They want to be healthy. They want to get out and get these vaccines so they can go out and get them without your consent. And just so you know, this is in fact true. I would say in probably in almost all states, any teenager, I'm pretty sure 12 and older, can go out and get a vaccination to prevent a sexually transmitted disease in almost any state without your consent now. Now, there might be a few states where that's not true, but yeah, your teenager can go out and get HPV vaccine and hepatitis B vaccine without parental consent. Now, on the converse of that is, I believe this article is actually wrong in that you cannot get most vaccines without parental consent. You can't get whooping cough or the flu shot or the MMR vaccine without parental consent. I don't know every state's laws, but I suspect there may be states out there where you can get any vaccine without parental consent.
Okay, but think about why that's the case. Why is that the case?
Right, because the right to reproductive health services is like guaranteed to all teenagers.
Right, but why is it the case that I'm saying that you need parental consent for Tdap, flu, and MMR?
Because there's risk.
But is that minor risk? Because if there's minor risk and this is all about being healthy, they would let anybody do it, right? There's obviously a very well-known knowledge of very serious risk for some, to the point that they have to make your parents be there and okay this. Yeah. Think about that in itself. If you can't do it.
Because that's in the law. You have to look at the family history and ask if there's previous reactions. And you have to know your health before you get most vaccines.
We're not talking about getting an ice cream and my parents don't want me to have sugar, but I'm going to sneak some sugar. We're talking about something that could have a permanent and chronic negative effect on your body health, physically and mentally.
Right.
This is no joke.
Right. So I don't think they can let minors get most vaccines in most states this way. But yes, when it comes to hepatitis B and HPV vaccine, because it's part of reproductive health, they will and can let any minor, get these vaccines in almost every state without your consent. So that's what this is about. Now, I find it interesting they don't spell that out in this article. They don't want teens to feel they can only go out and get vaccines for, to prevent STDs. They make it sound like they can get all vaccines.
And get vaccinated.
Right. Yeah, but what they're really doing is they're really pushing the HPV vaccine in this manner.
Because that's the only one. Once people look into it, that's the only one they're going to be able to really do.
Right. So what your plans are, for making plans, looking at options. You can get vaccinated in secret if your local laws allow it.
Okay, wait. I have to stop there because I know you just got started, but get vaccinated in secret. So in this whole Me Too movement that we're dealing with as a society, with all these women coming out and speaking out about these inappropriate and unacceptable experiences that they've had with, bosses and coworkers and other men in working positions in their lives that they've had to be quiet about and they've had to be secret about. We're now in a place in society where the whole thing is tell your story, come out and no longer be secret. We're not going to keep these secrets anymore. And especially with children who have been abused and have been sexually abused or physically abused, the whole, our whole message in society is don't keep this a secret. You have to be open and tell an adult, tell somebody that can look out for your well-being. So it's just, to me, really interesting and confusing and scary, really, that we're looking at a medical message that is encouraging secrecy between children and their parents, which is the exact thing that people really should want to avoid because you want all information out on the table. Secrecy never brings anything positive. There's nothing good that comes from secrets. It's not good for children to keep secrets from their parents in any context.
Right. And
it's dangerous.
Right. And knowing that this is surrounding the issue of sexuality and sexual activity and reproductive health, that almost makes it worse. They're encouraging the teenagers to keep their sexuality issues secret from their family, secret from their parents.
And the other vaccines, if you're getting anything else and you're able to do it in your state without having parental consent for something like the flu shot or Tdap or one of these other vaccines, doing it in secret and then having a very severe lethargy or fever or something happening a day or two later when your parent doesn't know you've done it. They don't know that something bad just happened and I need to take you into the ER now. Could literally turn into brain swelling. It could literally turn into something that becomes a permanent issue, all because of the secrecy. And that's the idea, is that children are supposed to be open and honest with their parents so that the parent can protect them. And so by encouraging any child, preteen or teen, to keep things from your parents, you're basically encouraging them to put themselves in a place of risk because the parent's role and their responsibility is to keep that child safe. You're not allowing the parent to do their job. You're not allowing them to be the most prepared to do their job accurately.
Right.
If a parent works nights and doesn't get to see you when you come home from school and you have a caretaker that's there and those wires get crossed for just a couple of days after a big thing like that happens, who knows what could be a devastating effect to that. And this is literally the first bullet point says, get vaccinated in secret. Go ahead and do it in secret. Like that's somehow a good culture that we're creating between parents and children.
I know, and they say, but you run the risk of your family finding out. They kind of give you a little warning. Then the second choice is try asking for your family to let you be vaccinated, which again is that language.
Teenagers don't get to do a lot of stuff. They want to be able to do a lot of things so they can let you do it. Language totally appeals to teenagers.
And then try asking your doctor, your school nurse, or another responsible adult to help convince your family.
In other words, to coerce.
Right.
Because to get somebody else to convince your family, what if your family has legitimate reasons for you not to do it? What if the reason your family's not doing it is because you and 3 other family members have had severe reactions and they're actually protecting you by not doing it?
Right.
Why would you want another adult to convince your family to do it or convince your parent to do it? Convincing sounds like they need to do it. Maybe they don't need to do it, and that's the whole point, that's how they're being a good parent to you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so ridiculously one-sided.
Yeah, like what if you're allergic to eggs and you're 13 years old, you don't know you're not supposed to get a flu shot if you're allergic to eggs.
But let's get your school nurse to convince your parents to do it.
Right.
Anyway.
But no, so they're just saying, come on out, sneak on out, find a school nurse to give you your flu shot. And you as a teen, you're not going to know you shouldn't get it because of your egg allergy. The school nurse is not going to ask you, are you allergic to eggs? Boom, you get the shot and you go into anaphylactic shock. If your parent were there with you, they would know you're allergic to eggs. You're not supposed to get this flu shot.
This next one's just ridiculous.
The next one's even worse. So you think this is bad. Petition the court for emancipation if your parents are really bad.
Right. Your parents are really bad for protecting you against something. They're really bad. So if they're really bad parents, like these ones are talking about, then you just should be legally emancipated from them. How are you going to, that's a very serious move for a teenager to take.
Right, yeah.
You're asking them to ostracize themselves from the family, potentially creating discord that may never be healed.
Yeah.
All over something that is not, we're not talking about something that is going to save your life because you have a specific condition and there's this one. We're talking about just general illnesses that most people are able to handle with no problem. And if you've gotten to teenage years and you've been fine, your body's probably pretty strong to be able to handle things, because I'm assuming that these are children who are not vaccinated, would be my guess, right? These are children who have made it. They've made it to preteen and teen years, and they're nice and healthy. Their systems are robust and able to handle these illnesses.
But it's really scary that they're targeting teens who already don't like their parents, perhaps.
Right. Yes.
They think their parents are awful people. Yep. They want to run away. They want to get out of the house. They want to sneak out and do things. So they're
make their own decisions.
Right. They're capitalizing on that. So if there's unvaccinated teenagers that are kind of, in that situation and they're having a lot of family problems, they're online looking for ways to get back at their family, and they come across this article. This article is really going to speak to them. Mm-hmm. So I think if you are a parent and your teens are not vaccinated and you're really struggling with them right now, or partially
vaccinated or vaccine injured from earlier,
if you're really struggling, if there's a lot of fighting going on and you feel like they're really pulling away from you, and a lot of rebellion going on and a lot of discord between you, your child is really at risk of seeing an article like this and having it really push their buttons and speak to them and answer, meet all their needs, for independence, and go out there and show you they can be an adult and make, independent medical decisions and make grown-up medical decisions without you. They don't need you for it.
Right.
And they're going to be really susceptible to this. So this is very concerning. But read the last bullet point.
So the last bullet point says, wait until you're 18. If you think that your parents would severely punish or abuse you if they learn that you disobeyed them. So not only do you have bad parents, but you have abusive parents. Right. And they're going to physically, emotionally, or mentally abuse you knowing that you went out and did something. So just go ahead and wait till you're 18. The entire picture that's painted here is you and your parents don't have a good relationship.
Right.
The entire picture is, you know, you don't like your parents. You guys don't get along. They're making choices you don't agree with. So let's kind of get back at them, like you're saying. If you have a good relationship with your parents, what this article should be saying is if you have an interest in certain vaccines, discuss it with your parents. Talk to them, go over pros and cons.
Right.
Talk to them about the prevalence of the illness. Talk to them about the risks of the vaccine. Have the discussion and make a discussion together, make a decision together. But they don't say that. What they're saying is you have bad parents. You need to go against your parents, and here's how we can help you do it. And that culture, like you said, they're already teenagers. It's already there. Do we need any more discord between children and their parents? Like at the place we are in our society, don't you think we would benefit from having better relationships with our children and parents, not worse?
Absolutely. But I mean, I'm going to skip to the very end of this. I just found this very interesting. At the end of this article, you'll see a whole bunch of other how-to articles for kids to read about how to deal with their parents, how to stop fighting with a stubborn parent, how to get a vaccine without being scared, how to accept that your parents don't understand you, how to cope with mean parents, how to get birth control without your parents knowing, how to deal with emotionally abusive parents, how to get your mom to forgive you after you do something stupid, how to get your phone back when your parents take it away. I mean, some of these are kind of just a little laughable, but some of these are very serious topics. Yeah. These are all very serious family topics, but they're presenting it in a way that is divisive to families and is pulling teens away from families. Mm-hmm. These aren't, and this is WikiHow, you guys.
Which is very mainstream,
there would be a completely objective, neutral, informative way to tell teens, if they want to go out and get a vaccine for HPV or hepatitis B, you could have a very nice kind of just well thought out explanation on how they can do that. They have, in some states, they have the right to go do that. And if they feel like they need that protection, they can go ask their doctor about it, go through their medical history. There would be, I think, a reasonable and responsible way to go about explaining this. This article does the complete opposite in every possible way it can.
It literally undermines families.
It's just
the family system.
I am shocked. I'm literally shocked by this. I mean, I'm not often shocked by our media, but
this is pretty bad.
This is pretty bad. So
number 2 starts to go into try talking to your parents. Kind of this one's more reasonable, right? Explain your worries. Listen, make it a 2-way conversation, which all sounds normal. But then it has your examples of what things you could be saying to your parents, and I find this very passive aggressive. I mean, there's one thing. I understand people are saying a lot of scary things and it can be hard to figure out what's true and what isn't true. I know it must be difficult for you. Can you imagine your 14-year-old, like you're a lawyer, okay? And your 14-year-old comes to you and says, I can imagine it's difficult for you to figure out what things are true and what things aren't true, especially when you're reading things online, Mom. So it must be very difficult for you. I mean, that is so patronizing for a preteen or a teen to talk to their parent in a way that makes it seem like their parent doesn't know any better. Again, there is nothing in this that says there are circumstances where children should not safely be vaccinated, and your educated and well-versed parent might be one of those people. Right. Instead, every single one of these parents are bad and stupid. Now they just told you they're stupid. Oh, Mom, I know it must be difficult for you to decipher between real information and this fake stuff that's on the internet. Can I show you some vaccine safety studies? I mean, like, it is the silliest thing. It's so ridiculous.
It says that, even in that tone of voice. It says that right here.
Well, come on. Yeah. May I show it to you? I found some research on vaccine safety. May I show it to you? If I was a parent, I'd be like, I found some research on vaccine risk. May I show it to you? I mean, like,
I know, no, totally. But ridiculous. I mean, it's funny. We're laughing about this, but what's scary is this is so true in that this is sadly, I'm afraid this is what's happening in some families, and teens are going to look at this. And I mean, part of me wonders, could this whole article be completely a joke? but it's not. I mean, it's so over the top. Could WikiHow just kind of done this? I mean, it's not April 1st, so it's not April Fool's, but I mean, I would love to know what they were thinking by writing this article this way instead of, I mean, do teens really listen to language like this? I mean, do they? Sadly, probably yes. I think the language of this completely speaks to teens. It's so cleverly worded to make them look smart and intelligent and make your parents look stupid, make you look like a good person, make your parents look mean. And they're just covering it in such a creative way that I'm almost scared to say that I think this is going to work for a lot of teens, and that's why you guys need to be aware of it.
Oh my God, this next one though.
Yeah.
Jeez. Go read the title.
Yeah. Ask your parents for information on what vaccines you have and haven't received.
Right. So this seems all normal, right? You find out what you've already been vaccinated against. But then it says if your parents really hate vaccines. So now we're just talking about, these are just parents that are just like, I hate vaccines, I hate health, I hate all these things. Like, this is the way they're painting them. You could pretend that you want to know if you're at risk for, quote, vaccine injury. It's in quotes because it's not real.
Right. Mom, I need to see my vaccine card because I think I'm vaccine injured.
But with quotes.
Right. So I need to research it. And so I can, agree with you and understand, how I'm vaccine injured. And they're using that, telling you to use that
just
as an
to
excuse.
get your records so you can figure out what you haven't gotten yet.
Because if your parent suspects you have other motives for looking at your record, they're not going to give it to you. They're going to hide it from you. So you need to trick your parents into giving you the record.
Saying vaccine injury in quotes is like saying unicorns and the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot. It's like saying this is not even a real thing. And so you believe in this vaccine injury thing, and which is, God, such a slap in the face to all these people.
I know. And it's funny. And it's like the authors of this article were physically incapable of writing the word vaccine injury without quotes. They can't. They cannot acknowledge that vaccine injury is real.
They will not.
They will not.
And so then the next bullet point, you guys, you are allowed to lie to your parents if it's the only way you can get the information. And what they say is to protect your health, right? It's okay to lie. So now we've got the secret stuff happening. It's okay to lie. What organization or company or website or anything would literally tell teenagers it's okay to lie to your parents? It's okay to lie to them. Is it really okay to lie to them? Because the thing is if you have a concern about getting a certain vaccine because somehow you feel like you're super educated on it and you're 15, you are allowed to have a conversation with your parents, but you are not allowed to lie to your parents to, quote, protect your health. If you feel like this is in your best health interest, you have a conversation with your parents and your trusted family medical practitioner, and you guys all sit down together and discuss this. You are never allowed to just lie to your parents because somehow that's going to benefit you and benefit your health. I mean, I can't even imagine the audacity for anything, or any website to be blatantly allowing something that is, like you said, dangerous, and it's risky, and it sets up a culture for dishonesty and a lack of communication between an offspring and their parent. Like, we're talking about parents and children. That is the most sacred relationship that you could have. And these people are trying to put wedges right in between that. Teenagers, like you said, are already going through a hard time. They're probably already lying about things anyway. Mm-hmm. And so now they're encouraging them to lie about other things as well. And the fact that they write that out in a bullet point, you're allowed to lie to your parents. Yeah. And it says later, once you get your vaccine records, you can just say, oh, I researched and realized I don't have a vaccine injury after all. And it says, make sure and make a digital copy in case they want it back.
Yep.
Okay, what about number 4?
So research the laws in your area if you're a minor. Some areas allow teenagers to get health care without parental consent. Figure out what your rights are. And again, this is all state by state. And you as a parent might want to find out what the law is in your state and have an open conversation with your teens. I almost feel like you want to have this open conversation so that they know, number one, the school nurse can come up to you and offer you these vaccines. Your friends might be getting these vaccines. They might pressure you into getting these vaccines too. You want to, I think, approach this proactively instead of waiting for something to happen and find yourself unprepared. You really want to educate your teens ahead of time. So find out what the law is in your state. And if you do live in a state that allows your kids to get these vaccines at school or without your consent, start having the conversation now.
And then they tell you there are certain clinics that have fewer restrictions. So because these clinics have fewer restrictions, some places can vaccinate you, even if your own doctor can't. Like they're giving you places that maybe don't have, that you can kind of, a little more shady maybe, that you can kind of get away with this, which is, I mean, that's unreal.
So then there's try visiting different clinics to see if they can help you. Walk in and ask at a doctor's office, pharmacy, reproductive health center. There it is. They may tell you they can vaccinate you, or they may at least be able to give you advice or suggest a different clinic. And then finally, they say, consider getting an adult to help you out, especially if you're young. Navigating medical procedures on your own can be confusing and sometimes frustrating. It can help to have an adult ally who has more experience. And again, they point you to the school counselor, the school nurse, the parent of your friend, a family friend, a doctor, or another trusted adult.
And then it goes into your method too of actually getting the shots. And so it even, this first one, schedule the date for a Friday, it says, because vaccines often involve mild side effects, lowered energy, fever, soreness, or stiffness. So a weekend is the perfect time to take it easy while you recover. And it says, expect to be less productive on the weekend after your shot. So if you have an exam or a project due, it might be better to wait a week or so. Okay, so they're giving you this is the play-by-play, right? Get your calendars out, teenagers. Make sure you're booking this on a Friday. You're walking into one of the clinics I just mentioned, and let's go step by step on exactly what you have to do. Yeah,
it's interesting. They're almost like kind of admitting that, the vaccines might cause a little problem in you. And since we're your ally and your friend and making these healthcare decisions, we're going to give you the heads up. You might not feel good. And instead of saying, the vaccine is 100% completely safe and harmless, you won't feel anything wrong. We know it's not just some, it's probably most teenagers feel pretty crummy after they get shots. And so it's interesting, they pretend to be upfront with that, even though they're they're really minimizing the risks here. They're upfront to kind of get you on their side and get you to trust them. And then a teenager's like, oh gosh, thanks for warning me about, that the shot might make me feel bad. Thanks for giving me the idea that, I should do it on a Friday or before a break is coming up, and it's nice of you to give me the heads up on that. So again, it's very sneaky that way.
Super sneaky. And then they say, figure out what, if anything, to say to your family. Meaning it might be totally acceptable that you don't say anything to your family. It says you can say you're going out and just not tell them where you're going. It says you can tell a white lie. Okay. Like saying you're visiting a friend to study or hang out. It says you're allowed, this isn't, you guys, this is written in here. You're allowed to tell lies to protect your health and safety, and getting vaccinated is one of those cases. You're allowed to tell lies. It says later, you can even decide on a cover story like, oh, we went and saw a new romantic comedy, or we studied for a history test. If your parents are distrustful, prepare your cover story well. Even take a picture, a selfie of you with your friend. That way you have evidence of doing it in case they quiz you. I mean, this is just absolutely ridiculous and crazy that this is written out in
right. That's why I think this is a joke, but it's not. And
but
that makes it even sadder.
But it's not a joke. This is like legit.
I know.
And
I feel like we're on Saturday Night Live. I mean, you could almost see this on Saturday
It's like a parody, right?
Okay, so
go to number 3.
Consider bringing a friend for moral support, especially if you're afraid of needles. You don't have to do this alone. If you're nervous or scared, see if someone can accompany you. They're being so friendly to your teenager.
Yeah, but then they tell you to talk to your doctor about some concerns. It says the doctor can help you and remove barriers. It says even if those barriers essentially are your parents. Yeah. So doesn't this kind of feel like this argument we're having with the legal, the political climate right now, where it feels like legislators are creating laws, and specifically Democrats are creating laws to get in between you and your children, to take away parental rights and have the state be responsible for more and more of what should be a parent's role.
Right.
And so this to me goes right hand in hand with your doctor can help remove a barrier, even if that barrier is your parent. How can your parent be a barrier? Your parent is your caretaker and your provider and the person who has nurtured you since birth. To have somebody come in and just wedge themselves right in between must be very hurtful and painful to parents that are already dealing with, you know, this tumultuous time at this age. And they're capitalizing on it. You're right. You were so right when you said that.
And they say, you know, teenagers, if you think that your parents might have told you something false, you can tell the doctor what they said and ask if it's a myth.
And read the one above it, though.
Yeah. You can ask your doctor for advice about handling anti-vaxxer parents. Again, there's the derogatory term. There's the label.
Who's to say your parent's an anti-vaxxer just because you've opted out of certain vaccine doses in your life, again, based on family medical history or prior vaccine reactions? Most of teenagers might not know this information, and who are they to just assume that you hate vaccines? They already said you hate them. You're a bad parent. You might abuse the child, and you're an anti-vaxxer. Yeah. So they have literally painted the picture of this person just being an awful, awful parent.
Yeah. And, you know, I have some friends that they don't tell their kids that they're not vaccinated. Like they don't even talk about it. So the kids kind of don't even know really that there's this thing called vaccination. And I almost feel like that kind of does a disservice. I mean, I know parents, they're worried about their kids like talking about it, and they don't want their kids to mention, to call out on the playground, hey, I don't have vaccines. Because you don't want your kids to be ridiculed or teased. But I almost wonder, and so you don't even talk to your kids about it. I almost wonder, like, this article is kind of targets those kids. It's almost like a setup. If you haven't talked to your kids about this, are they therefore more susceptible to this kind of influence? And maybe you do need to talk to your kids about this and educate them and go through the reasons why you're not vaccinating, and talk about the science of it as they get older, and have this be discussions at the dinner table, and so I really think we do need to talk about this with our kids, because if you don't, someone else will. And this is one example of a way that they're doing it in a very nefarious way, in my opinion.
It's so bad. And then what a joke. Treat yourself after you get your vaccines, you guys. Reward yourself. It says buy a treat like ice cream or a candy bar, which, the same thing with the flu shot. Free ice cream, free candy. The irony of weakening your immune system and suppressing it for a period of time, and then at the same time overloading it with sugar. It's ridiculous that they are giving this as advice, because it's the worst thing that you could be doing. You're supposed to be supporting your body and your system.
They say, go watch a movie you've been wanting to see, or make a purchase that you've been saving up for. It's so funny. It's like these are all the things that a teen might say. Oh yeah, I'm going to reward myself for doing.
I'm going to reward myself
something good. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
And then read so for handling the aftermath, this is the next thing. Read number 1, what it has.
Rest after your vaccine, especially if you don't feel well. You may feel mild side effects like, a fever or pain in your arm. And these will resolve within a few days. Nothing to worry about. You can tell your family that you're feeling under the weather, and you can say, I think I might be fighting some type of illness.
So another lie.
Right. Although if you don't feel safe about telling them about vaccines, but it's funny, it's almost like you're not lying, because to you are fighting off some type of illness. So it's a way to get around it actually without lying. But just
tell your family this. You already told them you were going somewhere else and you did it. You took your secret selfie to make sure that you had your evidence of it. You went and rewarded yourself with some ice cream, because now you've done something so good for your health. And now you're experiencing some negative, side effects or feelings, minor side effects, that whole weekend following the shot that you scheduled on a Friday. And now just tell your parents you're under the weather, because you're going to need some rest, because your body's just fighting off these.
Right. And then it says, remember that you don't have to tell your parents about getting vaccinated.
Right. It says you keep your choices to yourself, especially if they would be mean to you. So now you're a mean parent too, or you make you feel unsafe. So you're abusive and you make your children feel unsafe. And again, the third time it says this, you're allowed to keep a secret. You're allowed to lie to your parents. You're allowed to keep a secret. And then look at this next
if it's
thing.
necessary to promote your health and well-being.
Right. And look at this next thing. It says, know what to say if they find out. It says, show respect for their position, in parentheses, however illogical it may be.
Yeah.
Was this written by a 14-year-old who's really mad at their parents? Because look at, why would it be illogical?
That answers. Maybe that's why this is so absurd.
Why would it be illogical to show respect for their position? They're allowed to have a position because they're your caretaker. Do you have a job and pay for all the things that you need to have survived all these X number of years? Because if not, you do need to show respect for their position. And look at bullet point number 2.
Yeah.
This is one of the things you can say to your parents. I'm autistic. So how normalizing is that already? Is that's just one of the 3 bullet points is I'm autistic. It's so common now and will be so common as this next generation goes into teenage years that it's likely that many of the people reading this are going to be. So the bullet point says I'm autistic. I can't be turned autistic twice, but I could die of polio and I'd rather not.
Right.
I'm autistic. Yeah. That's not a cause for concern in itself.
So it's not going to give me autism again.
I'm not going to get it again.
So mom and dad, even if you think vaccines cause autism, it's
that's
okay.
the only thing they can do.
I'm already autistic.
Can't be turned autistic twice, but I could die of polio and I'd rather not. Not to mention the fact that there have been no cases of actual polio in the United States for 30, 40 years outside of vaccine-derived cases. So obviously whoever's quoting this hasn't really done their research because that was really just a bad example to have used. But I'm really concerned with this using of I'm autistic already. Like, hey, mom and dad, I just made this independent decision. How many parents listening to this now with children with autism, the lighthearted autism that keeps being shown in the media, it's like, it's just easy and light. And this is just neurodiversity. And this is just somebody.
Right. Yeah. Most kids with autism couldn't have this conversation. They could not even utter that sentence.
Taking a trip to themselves and going and get something done and lying about it and covering it up and going into clinic. Like they don't have the independence to do that because they have, brain injury. And this is not something that they're able to do. So the irony of mentioning, hey mom, dad, like I'm already autistic, so I'm not going to be made autistic twice. You're saying, that's not a conversation that's going to be had with most people that have it because most of these people are nonverbal or can barely communicate. And it's almost so hateful to the parents that have to really suffer with this to make it look like it's just a thing. It's like having diabetes. Oh, I'm autistic. Right. It's just a thing I deal with, but I'm totally fine. These kids are not totally fine. And to put it into this kind of, a little bit of a mocking, a little bit of just patronizing, that's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable at all. And then the last bullet point says, I did this to protect my ability to have children in the future. Because some of these diseases can kill a baby in the womb because I want to be a mom someday. Right. The irony is with the HPV vaccine, you might be actually ruining your ability to have a baby someday.
Right.
And so this almost seems like they're trying to counter that, which people might have been aware of that side effect. So I want to make sure I can have kids. So I'm going to go ahead and have this. I'm not really sure what they're talking about. What kind of vaccine preventable disease can kill a baby in the womb if you're not already pregnant? What could they be talking about?
Well, I think, chicken pox. If a pregnant mom catches chicken pox, that can be fatal to the baby.
Right, but this girl says, I want to be a mom someday.
Right.
If you're not pregnant at the time, what illness could you have as a teenager that's going to, in the future, kill a baby in the womb?
Yeah, it's not.
It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I know. I agree.
And I didn't go through the questions. Did you?
So the Q&A, we're not going to go through all of them, but I want to just point out the existence of it because it's called community. Excuse me. It's called community Q&A. So now your teen is reading this, and your teen is like, "Oh, good. Now the community is talking about this. They're asking questions. They're getting answers. I'm going to see what people are saying." No, all these questions were planted and set up,
yes.
And all the answers, even though it makes it seem like they are random people, these are all, media savvy, targeted, specifically worded answers. in a way that's just as absurd as the rest of this article, again, using language that is directly targeted to your teen who's thinking about sneaking out to get vaccinated. So these are not community Q&A answers, but they're almost so ludicrous. And they talk about, people who talk about vaccine risk. They call them snake oil peddlers.
But didn't they say, or is there really evidence, or are they just imagining things?
Right. Yeah.
That's in the question.
Yeah. And then, the, parents like yours have a natural distrust of authority, and, they have a lack of information. And, it's just absurd. I'm not sure if any of this is even, worth reading. But again, this is the most bizarre, ludicrous article. I just can't get over it. I mean,
it's so bad.
And some of their sources, now the references and the sources they use are all basically more objective and neutral, kind of informative research articles, or articles written that you would expect kind of like from a university or like a research center, or people just kind of giving out some basic facts. Some of these, anyway, not all of them. Some of the resources are just as bad as this article, but they have a lot of references. So your teen, again, will think that this is all very good scientific information that this article is based on. I want to give, I guess, just a quick little brief word to all the teens and the kids who are listening to this actual podcast. And you're going to have this conversation with your parents, but I just want all the kids out there to realize that families who, when they have a child who has a bad vaccine injury and has a bad reaction to vaccines, and the parents stop vaccinating because of that, say your parents stopped vaccinating you because either you or one of the other kids in your family had a bad reaction. Your parents stopped vaccinating because they love you and they want to protect you from further harm. Your parents know that medications can have side effects. Mm-hmm. Any shots can have side effects. And when one of those shots already harmed one of the kids in your family, they don't want anyone else to be harmed. And they know living here in America, the danger of these diseases is very, very low. They almost feel like you're going to have more harm if you get more of those shots that already harmed someone in your family than the harm from the diseases. And your parents are probably right that in your family, if someone was already harmed, the vaccines could cause more harm, and the diseases are really not likely to harm you since we live in a modern country. So I just want to point out, kids, that your parents have done a lot of research. They've read a lot of scientific articles. They didn't just, read one website. They've spent years researching this and making sure they're making a scientific, informed decision, and they're making a decision that they feel is healthier for you in the long run. And so I would encourage you to, trust your parents. They're always going to know what's best for your health. And even if you're a teenager and you start to think that your parents don't always know everything, you know what? If you're going to challenge your parents and start to learn about vaccines on your own, talk to your parents about it. Don't hide that from your parents. I'm sure they would be thrilled to have you challenge them and have these scientific discussions together. They want to talk to you about this. And if you think they are wrong about something regarding the vaccine choices, talk about it. I think the worst thing you can do is just, ignore it and move on and eventually grow up and leave home and never even talk about it. Have the conversation, look at the science together. And if you find your parents, didn't understand something correctly, or they think they have the science wrong, show them that, challenge it. And then you guys can have the discussion. Everyone's always going to be better having talked about something instead of, hiding from it or keeping it secret, like this article tells you.
What a terrible, terrible article. I can't even believe it said some of the things that it said. And I'm concerned that nobody sees this as a problem and they're willing to keep this up on a website without being like, this is totally inappropriate. It is wildly inappropriate. It really is.
I'm certain a lot of these references would be like, why on earth is my scientific article one of your references when you have totally misrepresented the science and how, how the original articles would have portrayed this information.
So bad. But hopefully you guys found this interesting, at least, so that if you, like you said, you have parents of soon to be preteens or teens now, that you can be kind of proactive with them and be anticipatory of what is coming next and what they could be exposed to. Not to say that your kids aren't educated, but make them aware of how this climate is so dangerous right now, that they are pushing themselves to these lengths. They're lowering themselves to these lengths to write articles like this, and how scary that must be and how desperate they must be. Because, if everything was good, like they said, you wouldn't need to convince teens how to do this secretly, because the parents would already be on board and the teens would already be on board.
Right.
So, this is very worrisome in general as a culture and where we're going with this. And this is something all parents should be concerned with, even if you fully vaccinate, because we have some of those listeners too. Who believe in medical choice for interventions. And I'm sure all of you are still infuriated by something like this, because where does this stop? You know what I mean? Like as far as the state or somebody else getting involved in your parental decisions, this is just, it's out of control.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned earlier about the Democrats kind of looking at legislation and trying to get in between parents and children. Right. I think most Democrat listeners out there would agree that's not the position of the constituents. That might be the position of the legislators, of the party line and the
I think
I
said
politics.
Legislators originally.
Right. I think it's when people try to paint the Democrats as the villains in the vaccine mandate program. I see it really as the Democratic legislators, policymakers, the higher ups. That for some reason, Big Pharma has chosen the Democrats to push their vaccine agenda, whereas most Democratic people, and the public, I would say probably don't agree with that agenda. So it's not to say that Democrats are bad, Republicans are good. I think it's the party agenda that we're seeing is the problem. And this has kind of encouraged me a little bit to talk to my own kids about this, because you kind of assume, well, all Dr. Bob's kids must kind of know everything about vaccines and be ready to face the world and not want to go out and get one of these adult or teenage vaccines that we're talking about. I'll admit I have not talked about this with my kids much either. I kind of just they watch what I do, they love what I do, they appreciate what I do, especially coming to the VIE event in Washington, D.C. They were just floored and really loved to see what I did out there. But I don't know that I really talked much to them about the science of this.
Right.
The science and the medicine of this. So I kind of got to get on that before our oldest is a senior in high school, and he's going to be moving on soon. So we'll be talking.
And me and my 6-year-old have this conversation all the time. I was just talking to a friend about this today. I think a lot of parents will agree it's hard to find the balance with your children about how much to tell them with what's going on and how much to let them have this innocent childhood. Because in my case, being gone a lot for things, and a lot, I say like once every couple of weeks, being gone, but that's a lot for when they're used to you being home all the time, because I stay home with my 2 little ones. And having to explain to them why you're gone and what you're doing and why I'm on the computer, why I'm researching and stuff. I've had to explain what I'm doing. And in part of that explanation comes from some laws are being passed that are affecting families, and children have been hurt, including my oldest. So we've had that discussion, and it's really hard to stop that from turning into them knowing too much. And it's hard to find that balance. So, I when I'm joking that I've sort of talked with my 6-year-old, but I honestly really have had conversations with her kind of about this. And I know that many of you listening feel that same. How much do I tell them? How, you don't want them to think the world is bad and there are people out doing bad things. You want to think everything's good and the good guys, protect everything. And so, it's hard with your kids in general. You want to be open with them and have this discussion, and they do have a right to understand why you've made the choices that you've made and why some other people are being discriminatory and how that's wrong. And, educate your kids so that they can defend themselves when this conversation comes up. Yeah. You don't want them to be like, well, I don't know, my parents just won't let me do it. They said it's bad or they said it's this, That's not good enough. You want your children to really understand exactly why you make the choices that you make because you've educated yourself. And as much as we don't want them to have to deal with this, they're going to have to deal with it because as we can see with the laws that have been passed with not entering public places and being kicked off your soccer team, that with the school that you go to, before long, we're going to all be having to talk about this and it's going to be happening younger and younger so that our kids are protected and they are not making choices that would harm themselves by letting a nurse just go ahead and do something without understanding your own family history. So this is a discussion we all need to be having. And you know what? Shame on these people.
Yeah, and let
Truly.
them know. I mean, I don't know if there's a place to comment on this article on WikiHow. Again, how to get vaccinated without parental consent. If there's a place to leave constructive criticism.
Or report it. Maybe we can report it and get it shut down because there's just something so wrong about this. I've seen it passed around on the last couple of days a lot, but I wonder if there's a way to report it.
Yeah.
Maybe. Anyway, as you guys know, we bring you all sorts of different topics on this and we go all different angles to bring you kind of what's happening in this discussion. And don't worry, we are going to have some awesome interviews and things coming up as well, just like you've loved in the beginning of season 2 and a lot more to come the rest of this season on the vaccine conversation, which we love having with you. And we're encouraging you to have this vaccine conversation with your families and your children. And this is a perfect example of why you do it. So hope you enjoyed it and not enjoyed it, but were you angry by it, but enjoyed the fact that we talked and covered it, but we're of course enraged at something like this.
Yeah. Sickened, really. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, we'll see you next time on the vaccine conversation.
Peace we wanna see in the world. Yeah, be the peace we wanna see in the world. Be the love we wanna see in the world. Be the joy we wanna see in the world. Be the change we wanna see in the world.
The information in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as medical advice. Always consult your healthcare professional for information on vaccines and infectious diseases.